Hey, friend Gladius here. Thank you so much for joining Vision and I in Intentional Evolution. If you find this content and experience to be valuable, consider showing up to an Intentional Evolution live experience. Bring a friend and make a value for value donation at our website, intentionalevolution.live. The overarching intention is to experientially connect with our internal sense of trust and start mapping the territory where there could be some disharmony, some energy that we don't prefer to have baked into different facets or aspects of our relationship with trust. And then use, if you wish, the tool set of the sovereign mind method to let go of any disharmonious belief structures that may have impacted your sense of trust up until now. And this phrase came into my awareness recently that trust is a multifaceted diamond that reflects a whole bunch of different aspects of your experience. And human beings have a tendency to compartmentalize our sense of trust. So there's a tangible difference in the question, can I trust myself versus can I trust women versus can I trust men? There's even a fundamental difference between can I trust myself versus can I trust my intuition versus can I trust my gut? So there's a whole bunch of different realms and dimensions of trust that we'll get to explore experientially today. Um, and I've created a tool set called the Sovereign Mind Method to essentially focus our attention on any disharmonious belief structure, any limiting belief that we no longer want to carry in relationship to our sense of trust. And if we find that, oh, we did find there's a little belief in here that it's not fully safe to trust, you could use this tool set to actually dissolve or transcend that limiting belief. And so my entire body of work over the last 4 years has been building this thing that I call the Sovereign Mind Method 2.0. And this will be uh, my main transmission for today in terms of the psychotechnology. The 4 steps of the method are pretty straightforward. We'll discover what beliefs are impacting our sense of trust in this conversation. You'll have the opportunity to detach from those old beliefs, those old stories and feelings that no longer serve, and let those go, and ultimately forgive those energies. And there's a very a distinct definition of forgive, which ultimately means like present it back into unbounded source awareness. Let it go completely. Culture commonly uses the phraseology of like forgive and forget. And I think that forgiveness is actually a very powerful metaphysical intention that has to do with allowing the energy to return to God, almost giving it back as a gift, saying, I no longer need this energy within myself to be in this fear-based pattern, and I completely give it back for you, God. That's a little, teaser definition of forgiveness. But what's really cool about this method in particular, how many people here have played with different methods and modalities to like process limiting beliefs or, I'll keep the question there, just process limiting beliefs. And what are some examples of different tool sets that we all have experience with? Internal family systems, little raise of hands. Awesome. That's where I got my start too. 5 years of IFS therapy. Very helpful. So just being in front of the camera. Thanks. Awesome. Appreciate that. What about NLP? Yeah, we got some practitioners. Cool. What other modalities have you guys discovered in your experience were helpful for processing limiting beliefs? Excellent. EFT and tapping, hypnosis. Okay. Others too? Yeah. Yeah. So a chemical intervention to sort of, distance yourself and your sense of self from those beliefs. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah, and so there's no one size fits all universal best approach or method for everyone, and that's why we tend to accumulate these tools over the course of our lifetime. And this little creation that I'm sharing with you today, this just happens to be the swiftest way to dissolve them that I've personally experienced. And one of the key differentiators, when I'm in an IFS therapy session, there's a story that is involved with the part when we're talking about these things and verbally and linguistically processing them to alleviate the emotional charge of the belief. That can take a lot of time, and what this method is a little bit different. You don't actually have to tell the full story or even really know the full story of where the belief came from and what meaningful purpose it's here to serve in your life or whatever. If you wish, you can simply choose to let it go. I like to say, just press the delete button. Like, that no longer serves me. I'm here to let it go, and that's available. And so the added benefit as well is that this sort of covers all of the bases, this method. So the I like to say that beliefs are a multi-sensory construct. They're woven into your visual sense, your kinesthetic sense, your auditory sense. They are a multi-dimensional construct in that there can be energetic components. Some believe karmic and even ancestral or past life components. Regardless of what you believe, if you craft the right method to address every dimension of that belief, you can dissolve every dimension of the belief structure. So that's sort of a foreshadowing of the actual like mechanism of the method, which is we're going to be using commands. And if you've ever used an affirmation, I want to draw a really, really specific delineation or distinction between a spoken command and an affirmation. To me, a command is a spoken word sequence that creates a specific energetic effect. Commands focus your attention on executing a specific intention. And so the difference there for me between an affirmation, the affirmation has an underlying intention of I'm trying to create and solidify a new belief into my identity, into my belief system. I am enough. Life is happening for me. And gosh darn it, people like me. And so the intention going into saying those words is actually to solidify and create a new energetic construct within your overall energy body. That's not what we're doing here. The commands that I'll be offering, the intention is right here. The first intention and the first step is to discover what the limiting belief actually is and to experientially connect to the energetic sense imprint that has been fueling the belief, the qualities of anger, fear, and sadness that are baked into the actual structure of the belief itself. So we'll be connecting with that energy in the first step. The second step is detaching from the actual energy. And what do I mean by detaching? Well, since there's a lot of hands risen from IFS, I'll explain it through an IFS lens. Have you ever encountered a part of you that didn't want to unburden, that didn't want to let go of whatever pain or sadness that it was holding on to? And what's fascinating about the human psyche is consciously we can have an awareness that, yeah, this would be really, really beneficial and wise and probably good for my business and relationships and probably good at everything to let it go. But I don't want to because that shit keeps me safe. It's so the conscious intention is, yeah, I'd love to let it go. But the subconscious intention, i.e., the inner child that is still confused, the inner child that is still trapped in that past moment and experience, from that part's perspective, it actually does make perfect sense to keep and hold on to the belief structure. Even if in the conscious adult ego state awareness, we know it makes logical sense to let it go. So I discovered a really useful and simple way to have, this is like weaving together so many concepts. I hope it's not concept overload, but to have the higher mind. Is anyone here familiar with that term, the higher mind, the higher self? Higher self makes it a little more familiar. Okay, cool. So the higher self, the higher mind knows exactly what that part needs And you don't necessarily have to go into an extensive linguistic dialogue to help that part of you feel safe letting go. You can actually just use the higher mind to help that part detach from the belief. So that's an experience that I'll offer here today as well. So step one is discover what the limiting belief is. Step two is help your full system detach from the belief so that there's not secretly an inner child that's holding on to it in order to have some sense of safety, in order to have some sense of identity, in order to have some sense of comfort. Once you're detached from the belief, it becomes 1,000 to 10,000 times easier to let it go completely. It's no longer an internal tug of war. It's no longer an internal battle. Letting it go from that point can actually be a simple decision. So then we can dissolve the belief's energetic structure. And what I'm proposing here today is that every belief has two primary components. The first primary component is the definitions that the belief is comprised of. When you look at a belief structure like, I am not enough, there's two components to that belief structure. The first component is I am. That's identity. There's literally an identification with that belief structure, which is why it starts with the words I am. And then not enough, that's a definition. Notice that it's not I am, that doesn't mean anything. You don't have a definition of that. No one has a definition of that. And so no one carries a belief of I am, that doesn't happen. But everyone at some point learns what worthy, enough, deserving, capable, important. We learn what these words mean. And at some point, when we're very young and very impressionable, we make a decision that says, I am not that. And so in that moment, I am not enough. I am not worthy. I am not deserving. I am not capable. I am not important. The identification remains intact with every single belief structure that starts with I am. The definition of not worthy, not enough itself is what we're identifying as. And this framework can dissolve both ends of that structure. You can disidentify with the belief. You can undefine it. And when you both disidentify and undefine it, you'll find that it stops making sense and that it's no longer a problem. So the following step then is to forgive yourself completely. And this is an act of compassion. And what I've found through studying people like Edward Mannix is that the combination of compassion and forgiveness can erode a very thin, hidden layer within these limiting belief structures, which is self-judgment. So if we've carried a belief like I did for 20 years of I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I don't deserve it, I'm not capable, and for that matter, I'm not fucking important. If we carry that for decades, there can be a new form of energetic attachment called a judgment, a self-judgment that says, I shouldn't have fucking felt that way. I should have been better. I shouldn't have done X, Y, and Z as a result of carrying those beliefs. And so when we forgive ourselves completely with the frequency of compassion and send the frequency tone of compassion into what remains of the belief structure, it just melts away from sincere love and sincere forgiveness. So this is a 4-step metaphysical framework. It works on literally any belief imaginable. And in this conversation, we get to focus on discovering beliefs about trust, because this is called Trust with Discernment. So from here, I want to maybe direct attention away from the screen for a second, just kind of like open up a dialogue about trust itself. So Vision's already got the popcorn mic. I want to ask the overall question, what is trust in your definition? What does trust mean? What does it look like? What does it feel like? How do you know when trust is occurring? You feel safe. Totally. Trust and safety, very intimately woven concepts. What else?
To me, there's a sense of certainty or a know what's to be expected. Because when we say, "Oh, I don't trust that person," or "They're flaky," there's this sense that we can't rely on them. So there's also like a reliance connected for me.
Yes,
with trust.
totally, totally. So it's like reliance, consistency of word and action. Totally. Other components of trust.
Other components for me, trust, when it's really, let's say, well developed, it's a form of belief as well, and a form of acceptance that, this is the reality I live in, where, let's say, this person is a friend of mine, and whenever I'm in need, I can definitely rely on them, right? At least to hear me out. So, like, accepting that, reality is me trusting, that person, that they're gonna come through.
Yeah, yeah. Acceptance is a core cornerstone of trust as well. Okay.
Safe and reliable, then I can open whatever way I'm trusting them, I can open that part of myself to them.
Yes, yes. And so it trust is almost like a vehicle through which more of our authentic self can emerge in connection and relationship to other people, to God, and to ourselves. When trust is present, there's an openness. And what I'm adding is like there's almost an emergence that can occur because there's maximum safety within the system. And so whatever spontaneous insight guidance can just come through with a foundation of trust. Cool. Okay.
Yeah, with that, what you're saying, Glad, it's like there's a dependability and it's time tested. I've used this thing over and over and over. I can trust it. But I also like the idea that just the word itself, trust, it kind of has us in there. But if it was just, that would be trust, which the trusses are the things that run up along
Support structure.
The structures, right? And so it's got that element too of like, and then of course there's the whole like legal entity of a trust where you protect assets and so it's a strong energetic signature in trust.
For me, if you don't mind me jumping in, trust has something to do with faith. Did anybody say faith yet?
No.
Remember the first one?
Yeah.
It is something really, there's something really deeply connected for me between trust and faith. And particularly, it's like having a belief in another person's faith. Does that make sense? Especially like someone's good faith, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Somatically, I think of it as security, the sense of security. If you have a strong sense of security within yourself, trust is just what we would describe it as. We can trust whatever is going to happen because we're really secure inside. And so we're open to receiving whether things go one way or another. That doesn't matter. I still have a sense of trust within myself, which would be a sense of security and secure attachment.
Perfect sense. We have both safety, we have security, we have radical acceptance, we have openness, and we have faith in the good faith of others. That sounds like trust to me. So I'm really grateful, Eric, that you said kind of like you brought in the energetics, that energetic sense of trust. Something that I have seen is that we can have a linguistic sense of any given concept. And there's also an energetic sense of that same concept. And the energetic sense of trust is, generally speaking, built out of all of our past experiences that had something to do with trust. And so trust can feel, for one person, very expansive, heart open, welcoming, just like safe and secure. Trust for another person could feel more like closed off, and guarded. For someone else, it could be kind of like a mix between the two. It's like generally trusting, but when I focus over here at this particular group of people, then there's a wall up. But when I'm with my people, there's no wall up, there's complete trust. And so I want to offer an experiential way to connect with the energy of trust that lives within you. This is your unique definition of trust. And so the very first command of the sovereign mind method is about discovering beliefs and sensing into the energetic imprint. And so what I'll offer is that we can sense into the energetic imprint of trust by speaking some words out loud. And again, these spoken words will create an energetic effect. And the first command that I use is present all energies tied to trust. And the intention of that command is, hey, subconscious, down there, can you show me all of the thoughts, images, emotions, and sensations that are bound up in this concept of trust? And just gently bring it into the light of my awareness so that I can see what trust looks like and feels like within my personal experience. That's what that command means. So get my clicker here. And we'll kind of just go into this first one. So present all energies is the key of it. Present means bring forth into present moment awareness, present it. All energies that are tied to, and in this case, we would say trust. And for each of these commands, the idea is always to speak it out loud. You can mumble it. Actuating your lips and your tongue to actually speak it will focus your attention a little bit more clearly. With practice, you don't need to actually speak it. You can just mentally say it. And if that's more comfortable or effective for you, by all means, feel free. But in this case, what I would love to give you guys a direct experience of is what happens when you say to yourself, present all energies tied to trust. Just try that one first, and we can mumble it together on your own time. You may find it nice to close your eyes. Just feel what you feel, notice what you notice for a moment. Whenever you feel ready, you can open your eyes, return to presence. And I'd love to just sort of popcorn style, what was that experience like? What energies or sensations sort of rose into your awareness as a result of that? How did trust feel? Like loss? Yeah. Thank you.
Mine was multidimensional. Felt like there was this opening and this joy and this as well, and a little bit of
Yeah.
grief of the not having help to others. So it was interesting to
Thank
have this
you, yeah.
joy and this safety and this contentment when it was like outward facing, and then presenting like in an inward facing was grief and sadness of like, oh, you don't have that, or you're missing that, something we're not
Yeah.
having. So it's very, very interesting.
That is very interesting. Thank you. Yeah.
Mine was kind of before we closed our eyes, pretty loud and strong.
Yeah.
And it's given an earn, and you can trust yourself, almost had a you know you can trust you, but there's a
Thank you.
So I'm a pretty open-hearted person, so I often feel energy in my, and I'm an energy healer. I often feel energy in my heart, but it's when I was focusing on trust, I felt into like my hips and like felt very grounded and stable, and I felt very open in my head as far as it felt more balanced instead of mostly being here. I felt the rooted part and also the open piece.
Beautiful. Thank you. Anyone else desire to share? Right. So what I'll reflect from that is just notice how we all have a very, very unique energetic sense of this concept, of this idea of trust. For some, it can feel like a sense of loss. For others, a sense of heart open expansion with another facet to it. It's a multifaceted diamond that reflects all aspects of our experience of, oh, it feels like there's self-judgment in there, all the way through what I would perceive as a sort of a clearer, more grounded, rooted sense. So there's the full spectrum of possibilities, everything from a negative energy association all the way through to a positive energy association with trust. And so watch what happens when we just add this little tiny thing in the English language called ing. See if there's a difference for you when we turn it into a verb. Present all energies tied to trusting. Notice what that's like. Notice what you. When you're ready, open your eyes, return presence. And what I'd be curious to hear is what difference or distinction did you experience between your sense of trust and your sense of trusting? Victor. Microphone.
When I was checking the how the word trust evokes in the body, it was much, like directed to the outside world, like, what can I trust? What can I trust, right? But then when we shifted to trusting, and my focus shifted internally to the state of being of trusting, what came up right away was kind of the feeling of forgiveness, of the process of forgiveness.
Yeah.
That even if the things are not going to go super well, like perfect, I give that. No, I know it's going to be good, great, And that kind of process of letting go, forgiving, it's, I think it's bound to, the process of trust.
Beautiful. Cool. Anyone else? Distinction between trust and trusting? Tiana?
Very stable, very wonderful,
Yeah.
very clear, very open. And then trusting brought up the times when I've been trusting, and it felt very vulnerable. The times when my trust had been taken advantage of. So trusting brought this vulnerability that wasn't there. Trust felt very stable, and trusting felt vulnerable.
Yeah. Perfect example.
For me, it came up as you've been too trusting. Like I gave it too freely.
Thank you.
We had a little bit on the first one with trust, but definitely with trusting. You break my trust, like an aggressive, like,
Yeah.
I trusted you, this, if I see that they're gonna break my trust, I'll beat them to it. A very shadowy, negative, like how we defend our honor because you broke my trust. So yeah, it's all, you have trust, mistrust. There seems to be my own shadow work or whatever, seems to be like a race, like, well, you can't stab me in the back first.
Yeah.
Competitive kind of, which I think mirrors the importance, the power of trust. Like I trusted you, like whatever. Trade, there's it's counterbalanced by an aggression.
That makes sense. Thank you. Very cool. So notice that linguistically in our mind and our belief system, these tiny little alterations of the language can actually connect to an entirely different set of experiences. And what I would say is that your definition of trust is not the same thing as your definition of trusting. Trusting is a verb, it's a more proactive experience, and we can have a completely different energetic sense imprint of trust versus trusting. And now we get into another interesting type of example. So, being trusted is different from trusting. Being trustworthy is different from trust. And so I'm sort of at like a coin flip whether I want everyone to like go through, but maybe just like very briefly scan in your experience what it's like to connect with these other definitions. Present all energies tied to being trusted, and just see what that's like for a couple of minutes. Just connect with these energies. Notice the qualities of the energy. Moving on to the next.
Glad, is it okay if I ask a question?
By all means.
So when we're presenting all energies
Mhm.
and we're presenting,
Yes.
presenting,
When you're
literally,
presenting the energy, yes.
do you have a model for like a framework for how to do that scan of what those energies, like how those energies can present or be presented? Like Orlando brought up, which I thought was a super cool ad earlier, like, well, from a somatic perspective, trust means nervous system regulation or nervous system stability, right? So like, what are the different forms energy can take?
Great question. Any form imaginable is the short answer, but some people receive images of past experiences of highly emotionally charged, like, God, that time when and if you explore and zoom in on that image, you'll almost always find that there's emotions and sensations that are also bound up in the experience. So the simple answer is SIFT, right? Sense it. I do ties, thoughts,
or
images,
ties,
emotions,
yeah.
and sensations. Yeah, that's the one I've always used. And people have different degrees of access to each of the different senses. So I don't get very clear mental images. Other people get them crystal clear HD. I get crystal clear body sensation. So my body will literally, when I use this command, it's just like, whoop, there it is. I can't help. It's highly salient. I can't help but see it. I would encourage you to just play and practice and learn through your own experience how your body likes to communicate to you. And that would be like the best heuristic advice.
But what you're telling me is that a memory or an image that can be crystallized energy.
Totally.
Or something that I physically feel a sensation in my body can be a type of stored energy.
Yes.
Or an emotion that comes up or even thoughts that arise.
Yes, totally. Every combination conceivable can be all bound up in a belief in a definition.
As it turned out. And the sensations I had while we were removing my limiting beliefs were ranging from going to the logic. Oh, that word doesn't mean that, right? Right now, I'm going to use a different meaning for that word, right? And level deeper was the sensations and emotions. But overall, for me personally, I think the deepest experience is when I feel it in my body shifting, or like a muscle relaxing or something like that.
Yeah.
It seems like that's like I got to the ground level of the issue. That's how it seems to me. So probably it's a layered cake, something like that.
I would agree. I love the layered cake metaphor because mentally describing and discussing the icing of the cake is kind of just like getting a nice little delicious taste of the surface. But the soma, the body, actually is a mechanism of storage. This whole thing is actually also storing an immense amount of data, including all of the energetic sense imprints of all of the beliefs that you carry within your belief system. So when we're saying these intentions, it's bringing into our conscious awareness energies that are always there. The belief structure is always present, waiting for an appropriate circumstance to just come up into the light of awareness, and then shift our emotions and thoughts and behaviors in accordance with to align with the belief. What we're doing here that's different is we are proactively probing and presenting that information which is in the body consciously and intentionally, as opposed to reactively waiting for life to draw it from us. We're choosing to connect with it ourselves. So I'm curious, just one more little popcorn share. What is it like to connect to these energies intentionally? What do you notice as you're connecting with these different aspects of trust?
Some of them felt similar, and then, but they each had like a little thread of a difference. So it was interesting to like say being trustworthy and being trusted. It was so like I think I have that innate like what's an outward view of how I see outside, and then what's my inward view of how I see inside, and to see the different both of those simultaneously, plus the threads of each of these concepts and how they're wired. And so some of them have, and they're kind of colored and so the way I see it in my brain. So like colors for me, like greens, blues, purples are happy, fun colors.
Okay.
And then ones that are more connected to like anger and sadness and grief and pain are like reds, orange, and yellow. And so it's interesting to see the different threads of these concepts all intertwined.
Totally.
In both in and out, and then them being different for me, inward and outward. So it's really cool to just play with all of these different concepts, because the words individually mean different things than when you put them together.
Yes. Yes, totally. It's brilliant. Thank you. Okay. So this is step one, is really discovering the precise definitions and the precise beliefs. There's a whole, I don't have time to get into all kinds of methodologies to discover specific limiting beliefs. I want to focus in on these definitions first, because definitions basically serve as the building blocks of beliefs. So you could have a belief, conceivably, for example, can't trust women, can't trust men, can't trust myself, can't trust the world, can't trust life, can't trust God, can't trust my intuition, can't trust this, can't trust that. It all boils back down to the core definition of can't trust or don't trust. And for some people, can't trust, 10 out of 10 emotional charge. I can't fucking trust. And it's so bad. But don't trust is like, no, that's like a 1 or a 2. I usually try to trust. I'm willing to trust, but I can't. That's my problem. But someone else is like, no, I can. Of course I can. I just don't. Totally different from person to person. Swear to God. Yeah, rarely. Sometimes. But yeah, can't trust and don't trust would be another perfect example of this. And it all centers back down, of course, to the energetic definition of trust and trusting itself. So what I would propose is that if you would like to experience an energetic reset of your definition of trusting so that it feels more safe and not, you could go through the sovereign mind method. You could dissolve all of those negative energy attachments that are bound up specifically in the definition of trusting, and then all of the beliefs that were built upon that definition of trusting, like trusting so-and-so is difficult or trusting so-and-so takes time. That's another belief. It's a layer within the multifaceted trust belief system. If you were to go through this process, you might find some immense benefit in your capacity to trust with more ease. So we get into the commands that actually begin clearing the energy. For sure.
So since trusting, the core word is trust.
Yes.
And of course I know the answer, but I'm just for clarity.
Okay, yeah.
So can we, if we did not have negative emotional charge to trust,
Mhm.
but we did to trusting,
Mhm.
could we just clear the trust, the core word of trust? Or do we need to have the, like that energetic charge in order to clear the definition, identity, those kind of things?
Great question. So thank you for that, because it sort of builds on this building block metaphor. If you refresh your definition of trust and you take all of the negative beliefs and energies and experiences and identities that have been bound up in that pain-based definition of trust, and you let go of that first, odds are pretty good that you don't actually need to go through 100 different belief clearing processes for every single belief that has to do with trust. And so that's why focusing in on the core definition of trust and trusting is where I start as a facilitator. So great question. Yeah, you can save a lot of time and it can be a lot more efficient overall process if you just dissolve the energies that are bound up in the core definition that all of the trust wounding points back to. Yeah. Yeah. More towards trusting. Yes.
And so since they didn't have, like, so I would want to work on, or so this is my question. So we'd
I
want
see
to
where you're
work
going.
on
Yeah.
the one that had the negative charge, the pain-based.
Yeah. The one that had the strongest charge, the strongest negative charge.
Yes, but we
Yeah,
could
in
go to,
principle.
yeah,
Yeah.
just trust, even though it's the core of trusting, it's just adding ing to it. But because there's actually pain to trusting, that's where we would want to focus.
That's where I would recommend focusing for the method, for sure. Yeah. So whichever definition carried stronger negative emotional charge is where there would be a gold mine to focus on for this process. Thank you. So now we get to the actual like core process itself. And now that we've discovered what some of these definitions are that carry the negative emotional charge, the first step really is to detach. And again, what I mean by that, and quick time check, Jake, how much? So we got like 30-ish minutes, is that right? Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, then we're doing good on time. So what I mean by detach is just ask yourself this question. Use either trust or trusting, whichever one feels worse. Just ask yourself, is there any part of me that doesn't want to let go of that old definition of trust or trusting? Just go ahead, take a moment to ask yourself, is there any part of me that doesn't want to let go of that old definition of trust or trusting? So real quick, raise your hand if there is in fact a part of you that doesn't want to. Right. Of course. Like, so here's the deal. It's like, again, consciously, okay, that doesn't feel good. It's bound up in old negative experiences. And maybe I do actually consciously want to let it go. But subconsciously, if you were to do a deeper exploration with that part, you'll find that part of you might be 16 years old and frozen in time, thinking that dad is about to take away my video games again or something, or 5 years old and getting bullied for the first time on the playground and realizing I can't trust those kids. Those kids are gonna kick my fucking teeth in if I play kickball with them or whatever. Ultimately, in the sovereign mind perspective, we see these parts as divine aspects of the totality of our consciousness, and we welcome them with curiosity and compassion, and we forgive them for holding on to anything that no longer serves us. And with compassion, we can use a command like this, which is higher mind, present the optimal frequency to all parts of me who are afraid to let go of that old definition of trust. And so I'll explain what this present the optimal frequency part means. The 5-year-old in that moment that's holding on to that distortion around trust ultimately just needs to feel the frequency of safety, and then it'll feel safe letting go of trust. The 16-year-old part may need to feel validation and acceptance in order to feel safe, letting go of its attachment to trust. There could be a 27-year-old ego state within inside of you that needs to feel a totally different frequency in order to feel safe, letting go of this belief. And so when you say higher mind, present the optimal frequency. That's sort of like a grand catch-all, like all the parts of me that have an attachment to this old limiting belief. Higher mind, higher self, just give them exactly what they need in order to feel 100% safe, letting go of their attachment to this belief. Does that make sense? Okay. By all means.
There was a lot of childhood trauma that there's no recollection of.
Yeah.
So I had set beliefs.
Yeah.
So there's set beliefs that I don't know where they stand.
Yeah.
I find it a little harder to target that and find that seed, I guess, where in a lot of things you can go to the seed to ignore. So do you have a suggestion in that instance?
Yeah.
When one thing isn't coming up, it's just a
Yes. The suggestion is let go of the need to find the seed and be open to the possibility that through simply making choices about what you believe, you can change what you believe. So there is utility and value and meaning to be found in exploring the origin story, but in this approach, that's not part of the method at all. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But beautiful. Thank you for the question. Yeah. Okay. So I think we already went through this. Any part of me not willing to let go, and then you can say the command out loud. Perfect. So what I'll invite you to do is speak this command, replace belief or definition with either trust or trusting, once again, whichever carried a more negative emotional charge, and just see what happens in your experience when you say, present the optimal or higher mind, present the optimal frequency to all parts afraid to let go of trusting. And take a few deep breaths. No rush, as long as you if you want to mutter it again to yourself, you may. Open now, so I'll continue. I'd love to hear, what was that experience like for you? What did you notice shifting within your awareness?
I did had an instant, like color, like a lot of colors of emotions, what to expect when I'm fully trusting, let's say, of a situation, person, or people in that situation. And as soon as I gave attention to, show me how that would feel like, right? A lot of, I would say emotions, maybe frequencies, but emotions of ease, joy, connectiveness, I would say absence of fear, but it was absence. I didn't like feel the absence of fear. It just
I know what you mean.
didn't come through, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, my mind just instantly produced like a lot of good things that I would want from, from that experience or from that set of beliefs.
Beautiful. Okay. That's actually uncommon in my experience. Quite often what will happen is that some of the energy of the attachment themselves will come up, which may be based in fear or sadness, and then those will sort of dissolve. So it's lovely that set some positive frequency, joy and excitement, the absence of fear. What about someone else? Any other experiences from speaking that?
No, you're doing fine.
No, you're great.
It's interesting because all the other ones came through really loud and clear, and I get like word downloads is the way I connect or am receiving this.
Yeah.
And this one was very somatic, and it felt like almost still there, almost actually, and nervousness in my stomach. So it was a very different
Yeah.
experience. It shifted.
Can I offer, if the sensation in the stomach, do you sense that that is at all discomforting?
Yeah, I don't like the feeling of nervousness or whatever that anxiety is, but yeah, it wasn't a comforting feeling. It hasn't dispersed yet, so.
Would you be open to a little mini process to help that gently release?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So if you will, just close your eyes and bring your attention to that nervous energy in your system. I'll invite you to say a few words out loud, starting with, thank you. I love you. I welcome and accept you exactly as you are. And I forgive you completely. Take a deep breath. Yeah. Yeah. I call that the instant forgiveness formula. It's very similar in structure to Ho'oponopono, but there's a few key intentions that are very, very different. Welcoming that tension and accepting it exactly as it is, and then forgiving it after you've already extended love and gratitude into it. Tend to dissolve it. Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah. 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 Good job to you. So, did anyone have the sense when they spoke this optimal frequency command of sort of resistance leaving the system? Yeah. Lori. Very cool. So, this is a command that isn't necessary 100% of the time, but if you do find that there is some stickiness to it and the rest of the process doesn't work for you the very first time that you do it, I always come back to this step and check and see again. Okay, I thought that there was no part of me that was like holding on, but let me check again. So if you find resistance in any other part of the process, I would highly recommend coming back to this step. But for now, we'll just go to the next step. So this is where we undefine the definition of trust or trusting, whichever one carried all of that negative association bound up in the actual definition itself. And so the command itself, all you'll do is you'll maintain attention on the energy that's bound up in the trust or the trusting, whichever one carries that negative charge. And then you'll speak these words out loud. And then you should notice the definition, that structure that's binding all of that energy together begins to dissolve along with whatever emotions and sensations that were tied to it. So I'll invite you to speak out loud and experience what you experience. Higher mind, undefine all definitions of trusting. Take a deep breath and notice what you notice. Who would like to share a little bit about what that was like for you?
So the last
step, like Victor, I felt joy, I felt divine love. And then this step, so that was like big energy. And then this step felt very clear and centered and steady.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you. Other experiences.
Also, the state became aligned in the body. Well,
Cool.
the extra stuff moving.
Thank you. Great. All right.
Glad, is it okay if I have another question?
By all means.
So when speaking the commands or thinking them silently, internally, is there anything important about how we focus our aim, especially intention?
Yeah.
Meaning, like, does the process work if we just say the words? You invoking the Ho'oponopono made me think of this.
Yeah.
Like, there's a difference between speaking the words of the Ho'oponopono and like
Embodying.
focusing or rather experiencing them in your heart.
Yeah.
As I've
Yeah. That was a
learned,
fantastic
as I've
question.
learned experientially. So like when we're connecting, when we're saying higher mind,
Mhm.
invoking the command that we wish to receive help, support with.
Yeah.
What would you suggest that we be doing in our internal experience along with just vocalizing the language, whether that be outwardly or inwardly? Or is there nothing that needs to be done? Is it just say the words?
Thank you for that question. The only thing that I would say is quote unquote necessary is mean it sincerely.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
So sincerity of intention necessarily, how is this coming through? It's like any static or nonsense that's within like your latent field of awareness doesn't impact your intention whatsoever, so long as you're sincere and clear about what you're saying and what it means, and you're saying it sincerely. And so the sincere speaking is an act of creation. These commands are sentences, words that you can speak in a specific sequence that create an energetic effect. And so all you need is sincerity. You need to know, like if I told you the command is schmibble hung dingle bum, you would need to know what schmingle hung dingle bum actually means in order for it to have an effect. Otherwise, you're saying something meaningless and therefore you can't say it sincerely. But as long as you know what it means, which is why I'm giving these definitions of the commands, that intention will execute and it will have the desired impact within your overall field of energy. That's all that's required is sincerity. Cool. Great question. Thanks. Okay. So we've just dissolved the definition component, but let's look at the identity component. The next command is higher mind, disidentify all identities of, and then trust or trusting. So I'll invite you to speak these words out loud and just notice what comes. And just feel and sense whatever comes up. And I'd actually be curious on this one. Who felt a stronger discharge of energy or movement of energy or what have you? Who felt a stronger one with the identity piece compared to the definition piece? Cool. Yeah, a couple people. 3, 4. Interesting. Who felt a stronger one with the definition piece than the identity piece? A couple people. Cool. So this can give you sort of an initial experience that these are actually distinct energetic structures that you're interfacing with by using these commands. The definition of trust is not the exact same thing as the identity, who you believe and create yourself to be in relation to trust. Those are different things. So the identity that you're carrying around trust and who you are and how trust interfaces with you as consciousness is a totally different thing than your conceptual definition of trust. The conceptual definition of trust tends to be informed by your past experiences. So I just think this stuff is really cool and I love nerding out about it. So I'll just move on to the next one, which is forgiveness. Heaven, yes. All right. So, like I said earlier, we as humans have the ability to judge the fuck out of ourselves for carrying these beliefs for so many years. And so what I have found is that saying this simple phrase, I forgive myself completely. Honestly, the word completely is probably just as important as the word forgive in this, because it completely leaves nothing out. This is a complete act of forgiveness. That really, really clarifies the intention of the command. So I'll invite you to say these words out loud. I forgive myself completely for believing in trusting. I heard a yawn, which is always a good sign. So what was that like for you guys, the self-forgiveness piece? What rose within your awareness as a result? Did anyone experience, oh, Lori.
This piece is always a big one for me.
Yeah.
Because of all the self-judgment I have for myself, I always expect excellence, right? Or
Totally.
perfection, right? And
Yeah.
so this one's always that like, oh God, thank you. Let me go, like let me
Yeah.
be free again, you know,
Yeah.
be fun and playful so I can. Yeah. That's always a big somatic focus for me.
Makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
The forgiveness process for me personally needs another, process beforehand, and that process is mourning. For me to let go, I find it is important to connect to the idea of what I wanted my life to be, and actually
Beautiful.
So that's following your practice. That's just one step that I added for myself. So I hope it can be helpful for others too.
Yeah. I think that you're absolutely not alone in finding it beneficial to really connect with and stay with and just allow the presence of these things before letting them go. Yeah. Cool. So, self-judgment layers dissolve with forgiveness. Ah, yes, I am compassion for all ideas and energies of distrust or trusting or what have you. So this one is directly informed by Edward Mannix's work. He says, "I'm so sorry," as his verbal phrasing that invokes the frequency of compassion. I prefer to say, "I am compassion," because I am is a very powerful statement. And so the intention of this command is to actually embody the energetic state of compassion and direct it into the very energy or idea of trust, trusting, and fueling that with compassion from your higher mind. So just notice as you fully embody the energy of compassion, how it feels to say, I am compassion for all ideas and energies of trusting. Yeah. I really love that one. I personally experience it kind of like a warm, almost like a salve, like just like warmth filling the system wherever that negative charge used to be. And I'm curious to hear how you guys experience it as well. What was that like? I knew it was going to be you. You knew.
Felt
I had a vision.
passion in me,
Yeah.
flowing out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a real integrated
Mm.
feeling of passion. It comes from one. It comes from a higher mind. It comes
Yeah.
from being able to forgive and offer compassion from a mature state, from a complete state.
Yes.
The energy and feeling.
Beautiful. Thank you, Eric. Yeah. Yeah. I like that word as well, of like integrating, because there's an idea that I fundamentally disagree with in belief work writ large, which is that once you let go of a belief, you have to replace it with the opposite polarized belief. So if you let go of I am not enough, you have to replace it with I'm more than enough, or what have you. My view is the consciousness that you are is fully sovereign, highly intelligent, and highly capable of navigating life without positive polarization or negative polarization within your general belief system. And so rather than filling the space with the opposite belief of what you used to believe, I prefer to just fill the space with love and let that take care of everything. So that's my philosophy here, and that's what this command also reflects and fulfills. So, and I'll add just a word here. Ed Mannix's teachings on the compassion key says that compassion actually also dissolves karmic energy structures. And I'm not even going to begin to go into that whole diatribe, but just know that that's also a bonus. So congratulations. We've just cleared our sense of trust. And actually, before I get to this next slide, I invite you to now go very back to the first command and see what has shifted within your sense of trust or trusting. If we go back to this whole present all energies command, you recall how it felt before, just see how it feels now. Present all energies tied to trusting. What's that like? Blank slate. Cool. Peace. Great. So instead of there being a negative and dense emotional charge, this process can reset back to factory new condition. You get to decide whatever you want to feel and believe and think about trust or trusting, rather than a subconscious negative association that subtly distorts our perceptions in our day-to-day experience. That's one way to describe the benefit of using a method like this. And so knowing that you can take a pattern of energy that is bound up in a belief or a definition, and you can completely discharge it in a few short minutes. One question I would ask if I was in your shoes is, well, what else could this possibly be useful or beneficial for? And there's 1,000 different beliefs and belief systems that this can be beneficial to clear. And when it comes to belief work in general, this is where I recommend starting first. If we carry a belief system that change is hard, change is difficult, change takes time, change takes effort, it won't work, nothing works for me, it never works for me, it's too late, it's too good to be true, it's too easy, that might just make any healing modality or approach that you pursue a lot more difficult than it needs to be. And so clearing beliefs about change first can be a general lubricant to opening yourself up to experience change in any way, period. So I highly recommend clearing limiting beliefs around change itself. And then this is the shit that like changed the fuck out of my life and made me want to commit my life to sharing this with as many people as I possibly can indefinitely. Clearing the not enough, the not good enough, and the not worthy wound was huge, profound, multi-dimensional, life-changing for me. I'm a completely different person as a result of doing that work. And so like once you build up basic proficiency, clear anything that gets in the way of you from believing that clearing that is actually possible right now, then I would just clear that like right now, like as soon as possible. Especially the deserving shit, dude. Fuck that. Worthless, don't deserve, fuck that. Anyway, and then self-efficacy is another really, really meaningful belief system to take a look into. The sense of, I can't do it. I can't do that. I can't do this. I'm not capable. I'm not competent. I'm not effective. I'm ineffective. The sense of overwhelm. Laura, you can back me up on this. What was it like for you? If you're open to sharing your experience, of course, feel free to decline. But what did you notice shift in your experience when letting go of the sense of overwhelm? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So-called, yeah. Totally. I would say metaphysically, what you're describing is you disidentified from it. And when you're disidentified from it, the overall emotional charge of it shrinks to a very manageable level, as opposed to, ironically, an overwhelming level. And you can see and perceive it as something distinct and separate from yourself. So it's not that, fuck, this experience means that I'm overwhelmed, or it means that I'm unworthy, or that it means this. There's a awareness of like, oh, there's a tiny little thought form there that's like floating around in my awareness. And I don't have to choose to identify with it because I know how to disidentify from my thoughts. So that's another, thank you for that. Beautiful.
Glad, before we close,
Yeah.
I think it's only fair. I know I kind of been taking the devil's advocate. Not that he needs any advocates, right, Eric? But
That's
you
great.
know, I'm
Yeah.
a skeptical person. Like I
Totally.
feel that I have a healthy sense of skepticism. I think generally there could be a lot of people, or some people at least, that are thinking something along the lines of the following thoughts. And I want to give you an opportunity to respond, which is, does the negative charge that I've been carrying around, that's anchored to my definition or identities in trust or trusting or whatever those beliefs are, keep me safe? And if I let go of those, discharge those, it's neutral, I'm free. Am I making myself vulnerable? And when do we bring in discernment?
Perfect. Thank you for that.
Because I heard the piece you said about we don't always have to re-invoke, re-implant, recreate some kind of like equal and opposite belief structure to whatever it is we clear. We can just make new space. We can bring in new, fresh, clean energy. And also, I think some people may wonder about how have these beliefs been serving me, or do they serve me in some way? And so now what do I do? How do I move forward with my newly reset sense of trust?
Let's talk about discernment when it comes to this practice and this methodology. Thank you for that question. Are you okay with me taking my time on this and maybe going a couple minutes over?
Yeah, 5 or 10 minutes if you think.
Great. Yeah. That's max. So I'm gonna hold something to fidget. And I'm gonna think because it's like, fuck, dude, I'm probably gonna answer this question in a different way than I ever have before.
I feel like we're also like this question, if it's okay, is like building a bridge into the mastermind. You know,
Totally.
like
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. Sure. Yeah.
My discernment is like, is there some spiritual bypassing going on here?
Yeah.
With the instant and the not holding that space or whatever. And just I've been watching that, not as a skeptic, but is there, is there
Yeah.
space for that? And that's where I think discernment comes in,
Totally.
is holding that space in between and giving things a little bit of time to breathe and be felt out is where discernment is gifted.
Yeah. And like that piece that Victor brought up about grief, like
That's sitting
that
with it.
there
allowing
can
the
be like a
experience.
part of a person's process, maybe not for everyone, but yeah. So discernment is where you were picking up from.
Totally, totally. So what I'll start with is that every single belief is intentionally created to serve a specific purpose and function. And what I would suggest is that in the moment that the belief is created, that was based on the sentience of the child or the person who created it in that moment, that probably was the optimal thing to happen because it happened and God doesn't make mistakes. So your creation of that belief served the optimal purpose. It was the optimal evolutionary and adaptive strategy to survive, get through whatever that traumatic moment was in that moment. And these beliefs can serve, I would say, proxies for creating safety, but it's not actually the belief structure itself, in my view, that creates safety. Safety, well, in and of itself is another definition, but I won't address it at that level. What I'll say is your consciousness isn't actually bound by any of these beliefs or definitions. Your consciousness isn't going to expire if you let go of any of these beliefs or definitions. The way that your conscious and rational mind relates to the outside world will change in response to letting go of different beliefs and definitions. Therefore, it becomes very important to have some kind of process by which you exercise discernment of which beliefs and definitions are safe and wise for you to let go of. And what I have defaulted to in my personal practice, this is what I do for me. I'm not saying this is what's best for you. I ask my higher mind, is it safe and wise to let this go now? And I'll get a yes or a no. And if I get a no, I'll honor that and I'll listen to that and I'll go through a self-inquiry process to discover, okay, why is it not safe to let go of the sense that it's not safe to be seen? Help me understand. That can be a trailhead of self-discovery that is very rich and meaningful. And you might discover different aspects of yourself that you weren't previously aware of by doing some form of self-inquiry like that. So I ask the higher mind, I ask the higher self. That's one method to sort of put like a safety check into the process itself, which I think is probably wise to recommend to a general audience when I sit here and think about it, because having this kind of technology, you totally could use it to bypass shit that you don't want to deal with and just discharge the beliefs and discharge the energy out of your system. You could use this irresponsibly. Yeah. And yes, and taxation is voluntary, and all of these belief structures are purely voluntary. So they only exist in your field of reality with your explicit consent for them to exist. So that's like a first pass at the question. And I feel like for some reason I want to open it up to like a group dialogue. How are you guys all making sense of this so far? Pass that down.
So here's how I understand it is, as you said, the beliefs are there created for service. What the beliefs being created for service, and the higher mind says, no, this is not the time to let go of this. I wonder, and in the way that I work with beliefs is with gratitude. So what things did I learn from this experience? So instead of bypassing, the bypassing would just be like, oh, I didn't learn anything from this, and I just want to get rid of you because I don't like you.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah.
You didn't do anything, just so you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
To be fair, if I may, I think there also can be some beliefs, some energetic baggage, imprints, somatic imprints that we're carrying around that actually are useless, right? There could be some where we don't need to know, we don't need to analyze, to process. Actually, thank you very much. See you next fall, right? There could be some that are like that. There could be some that we need to grieve, that actually that is appropriate. There could be some that we would like to give a place of honor to as we wish them on their way. And I think the initial thing that was coming up for me, especially around this piece of trust, which, as you know, is very near and dear to my heart, is that piece about discernment. Just feels so important, especially in connection to this issue with so many people who we have sometimes had wounding.
Yeah.
We have sometimes had safety issues. And so, yeah, to me, that factory reset is such a divine gift, that these cheat codes that you found, that you've unlocked, that we can use responsibly with awareness, but with that self-sovereignty. The self-sovereignty starts now.
Yeah.
The sovereign mind starts now.
Yeah.
Now that we've chosen to release that frozen energy, that discomfort, that heavy weight. Okay, now who and how would I like to trust? Would I like to choose to trust? How would I like to be safe in trusting, and so
Yes.
forth? So it's not to say that we must immediately create a positive, empowering belief.
I trust everyone and everything at all
Right.
times. Yeah.
But it's more like intentional evolution
Right.
of
Bingo.
our trust system.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Thank you. Other thoughts, reflections?
To add more to that, it sounds like we are describing discernment. So like there's the discernment of bypassing. So how do you discern for bypassing? There's one version where it won't go away. And there's a way to go through the forgiveness, which is acknowledging what it is there for and really owning to that. And then there's the ones that don't need really to go dive deep into. And so the discernment is like there are many paths to this, and you get to discover what path it is for what belief. And that gives you a lot of options, which is positive. Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
My process, like you said, that gratitude was a big thing in it. So when we were going through the man and being hung up because my emotionally charged sentence that came out from the discover was, you've trusted too much.
Yeah.
So then when I was forgiving myself for that, I was getting a little hung up on those two steps. But when I was able to go in and bring the whole sentence in rather than just the word, because that's where it was emotionally tied, I have to, in my process of healing things, I changed the narrative. It's like, okay, I was too trusting and I got, screwed over. But the other aspect is that person is now a better person because I believed in them and lost trust. Now they want to be a more trustworthy person. So it's like I'm glad I gave them trust because I know it helped them in their journey. and that's the narrative that's healing for me. So I do kind of need a counter confirmation, if you will, to balance it out. But with it, it helps it disperse it. If
Yeah,
that makes sense. You know what I mean?
totally.
It's kind of a little extra step in there.
That's beautiful. Makes sense.
Eliza, did you want to add?
To the piece around discernment, because there's like sometimes for me it'll come up with like, if I let go of all my problems with trust, my beliefs around trust, then am I just gonna, you kind of said this, am I gonna trust everyone all the time? And is that gonna lead me into a problematic place? Or like, if I let go of feeling unsafe, then am I just going to feel safe in any situation and not be able to get myself out of something that could be a bad situation? So that's like a logical fear. And what I found is actually basically the opposite, is when you discharge all of the charge around that belief, then you have clear discernment.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can just make the decision that's right for you, and you can feel it in your body, and it's much more simple rather than being attached to all of the past experiences.
Thank you. Nice. Yeah. Really well said.
I sense that we are in the mastermind
Me
at this
too.
point.
Yeah.
And so it's about 10 after 5, and we're pretty
Yeah.
much good on time if y'all can still stay until 6. So I just want to offer the possibility. I assume you feel complete
Yeah.
with your presentation.
Yeah.
I would just want to say thank you very much, Master Claudius.
Thank you.
If you found this content to be valuable, even life-changing, we invite you to make a value for value donation on our website at intentionalevolution.live. Your contribution is our motivation to keep going, keep growing, and keep intentionally evolving.